A very happy Father's Day to all those who are here present, to my own father who's watching from home on Net TV, and to all the fathers, both living and deceased, as we give thanks to God for the blessing of our fathers, especially all the good that they have taught us. I wish to take this opportunity, this homily today, to reflect on the role of fatherhood in light of the gospel, in light of the readings today. And so in preparation for this homily today, I've been kind of thinking about, well, what does fatherhood really mean? What are some of the qualities, the characteristics of fatherhood? And how can those qualities, those characteristics be both echoed, how are they echoed in the gospel? How are they an image of Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd, the Good Father for each and every one of us? And how do we learn from them? You know, on a day like today, I received a few text messages this morning saying, you know, Happy Father's Day, Father. I appreciate that. I think it's sweet and it's kind to wish your priests, I guess, a happy Father's Day. But there's a lot of differences between my life as a spiritual father and those who are truly biological fathers, you know. For one, you know, I often say, well, I can take a nap during the day, you know. A biological father wouldn't be able to do that, you know. Maybe your kids can take the naps, but you can't. I make my schedule. Generally, I create my schedule around the needs of the parish, but I can also create a blocked out period. This is my time. This is my afternoon. This is my evening. Good luck having a biological father try to do that, you know. Don't bother me right now. This is my 2 hours of free time, you know. So while it is a blessing to be called father, I recognize in so many ways where I fail in what it truly means to be a biological father, what it truly means to be father after the example of the Good Shepherd, the saints, especially even after the example of this church's patron saint, Saint Joseph, Father par excellence. But in the process, I started to think about a few topics that reflect both fatherhood and the readings today, and I wish to share them with you, both examples in my own life, from the example of my own father, but also the examples of fathers that I have encountered in my years of ministry and my years of living. The first, I think, in light of the church that we're sitting within and the church this Mass is being broadcast from, St. Joseph, one of my favorite titles of St. Joseph is Protector of the Holy Family. St. Joseph as protector, a father as protector. You know, a protector, in the sense of that word, you can understand there's a strength to protection, right? There's a courageousness, there's something that's brave in being a protector. Now, this is not to be confused with, you know, masculinity, you know. My father is no bodybuilder, right? You know, he's no gym rat, you know, although he has a stationary bicycle, which he rides for about 5 minutes, and then he claims that the meter says that he's ridden for 3 miles. I said, that's impossible, Dad. I know how to ride a bike. You can't ride a bike for 5 minutes and go 3 miles. I don't think he's, you know, Neil Armstrong, excuse me, who's the Lance Armstrong? Yeah, you know, this is not how that goes. He's no image of looking at himself in the mirror. And when we think of masculinity, that's a difference. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about bravery, when we talk about courage, when we talk about that word being a protector. Protector is someone who protects those whom he loves, rooted in love. To put himself on the line for those whom they love. And you see that obviously in the example of St. Joseph as a protector of our Blessed Mother, the protector of his foster son, the child Jesus. But we see it obviously in Jesus Christ in the second reading. God proves his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, he died for us to protect us from our sins, to free us from the slavery to sin. Protector is not to be confused with someone, who's got the muscles and the strength of I'm just creating, modern day examples of Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. This is a protector that's rooted in love, that's rooted in sacrifice and courage. When we think about the theme of fatherhood rooted in and moving from this idea of being a protector, they're protecting their family rooted in love, protecting whom they love. And that love is a sign of their fidelity. Another theme of when you think of the fatherhood, we think of faithfulness. I give thanks to God for the life of having my father in my life for all these years, being faithful to me and to my mother and to my siblings. But that faithfulness is also rooted in the same way in love. That faithfulness is a faithfulness, it's a covenant, it's a promise to be there, to be present all the days of our lives. And that covenant, that promise, that faithfulness is rooted in the gospel. It's rooted it's rooted in the first reading. Forgive me. For those who hearken to my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my special possession. You shall be with me always. I will protect you. I will be faithful to you. What a blessing it is to experience faithfulness. We know, all of us know, what broken trust feels like as well. It's hard to escape from this world without having someone break our hearts, or break our trust, or break our confidence. And when we experience that, we can truly then take with more blessing and more gratitude those moments of faithfulness, those people who have been in our lives through thick and thin. As that marital covenant states, the day when my parents were wed at the altar, I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, to love you and honor you all the days of my life. That's true faithfulness, rooted in love. Another characteristic of fatherhood that I can see in my own dad and I've seen in countless fathers is not shying away from work. Not shying away from work. I'm the youngest child in my family. When I was born, my eldest brother was 19 years old. My sister I was born on her 16th birthday. We're exactly 16 years apart. And my next brother was 13 years old. And then there was a 13-year gap. And then the blessing arrived to the family. That's what I prefer to be called. And when of course, as I was growing up, my parents would be older than my peers' parents, My mother had me when she was 39 years old, so most of my peers' parents were much younger when they were born. My father is a few years older even then to my mother. So there were experiences in my life where, I remember as a child going shopping to Macy's, and I was maybe 10 years old, and the lady said, "Oh, it's so nice that your grandfather takes you shopping." I said, "Well, no, that's my dad," And so, but when my father retired around the age of 62, he was a carpenter by trade. And there were this period of time when he could work only but an X amount of hours per month, for reasons of his pension and for tax reasons. So you could work maybe 38 hours a month as carpentry. So at 63 years old, he started working again, those 38 hours a month. And it was like June 1st, and he would be back to work. And by June 4th, he had the 38 hours completed. And then he'd just sit there and wait for July 1st. And then July 1st would come, and he'd jump back into work. And he continued that till he was into his 70s. And when he hit 70, I guess they figure by the time you're 70, you're probably not going to want to do more construction, more carpentry work. So the rules of working 38 hours were kind of thrown out. You could work now full time if you wanted. Well, guess what? My father began to work again full time. So at 70, 71, 72 years old, my father is working full time as a carpenter. Not because we were, living paycheck to paycheck, but because he desired so much to make, to create, to be a part of a family of carpenters, of his co-workers, his friends. He enjoyed what he did so much. But it's not an easy job. And I was a newly ordained priest, and my father was still working full time. And my mother called me one Sunday, and it was around like 4 in the afternoon, and she said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just about to take a nap, Nap is a big part of my day, and siesta. And I said, I'm just about to take a nap. My mother said, you're going to take a nap? How many masses did you have today? I said, I had 2 masses this morning. You had 2 masses this morning, and you're tired. Your father is 72 years old. And he's dragging a toolbox into the city every day. And you had 2 hours of work, and you're tired. A father is someone who does not shy away from work. Jesus Christ in the gospel, he recognizes the need to send these laborers into the vineyard. And he himself leads by that example. He says, look, follow my example. You've witnessed my example of ministering, of curing the sick, of healing those who are infirmed, of forgiving sins. Follow my example. Don't shy away from this work. That's a universal call to all of us. Actually, all of these characteristics, although they are characteristics that can be traditionally found in fathers, they're characteristics that are a call to all of us to not shy away from work when work is needed, when the work is necessary, the work of the gospel, the mission of the gospel. The disciples, the 12 that he named, didn't say, I like this idea, Jesus, but I'm going to take today off. I need a nap. Simon called Peter on his journey, stopped for a siesta. No, the work was necessary. The work was needed. The mission was there. And the example of Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd, the great worker, was present. That idea, that theme of work transpons into my next piece, which is sometimes that work is thankless, but it's necessary. How often I've spoken to parents who say to me, Father, if only my children really knew the sacrifices that we make for them. Especially parents that are working 2 or 3 jobs to try to send their children to a Catholic school, or even just to provide for their children. If they only knew, Father, the work that we do, the sacrifices that we make for them. In my previous parish, there was a lot of the children were sons and daughters of Hispanic immigrants, Mexican immigrants, Ecuadorian immigrants, Dominican immigrants. Is not much different than the Hispanic community here at the Co-Cathedral. And I'd look around at the children and see every child was wearing a new pair of Nike sneakers. They had their Adidas sweatpants on. They all had iPhones and AirPods and iPads. And their parents were using like flip phones, Google, the $10 phones, and dressing in Target clothes. But their kids had everything to be provided for. And the parents would say, if they only knew, Father, all the sacrifices that we make. I think part of that theme of fatherhood is sometimes it's a thankless job, but it's a necessary one. It's a thankless work at times, but it's a necessary one. That's the role of being a missionary disciple, is to be sent out into the world to do the work that is needed for the gospel and not expecting any sort of thanks in return. Because when it's rooted in a true mission, a true purpose, our thanks is this eternal salvation of the men and women that we are able to evangelize. Our thanks will be found in heaven. And finally, I think a theme of fatherhood that is evident in the gospel and in the lives of so many, and fatherhood in its purest form, is not controlling. Not controlling. Sometimes people will say, Father, this church, this Catholic church of yours, it's all about rules. It's all about what you can't do. And I think that's so far from the truth. It's a church that helps us to direct our lives, guided by principles, guided by morals, but it's not a church of no, 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 no. Jesus Christ appoints the 12, appoints the disciples, these missionaries, these apostles, and he sends them out. He trusts them. He trusts them to do the job. He trusts them so much. And Jesus is God, and Jesus is all-knowing. He knew Judas the Iscariot would be the one to betray him, but he trusts in his free will. He allows them all to go forth, to be sent forth. The idea of trying to control, of trying to hold and to direct one's life, perhaps in some sort of an obscure way, people might think, well, I'm trying to help my children by telling them where they need to go to school. I'm trying to help my children by telling them how, by forcing them to act in a particular way, by forcing them to do things and to live in a particular way. True fatherhood is not controlling. It's trusting that you have done your task in teaching by word and by example, so that you can then send forth your children into the world as Jesus Christ sends forth the 12. I think that when we reflect on all of these characteristics and so much more, we can ask the Lord's blessing upon all fathers in this day and age, that they may all have a greater sense of their understanding of being protector, of being faithful, of not shying away from work, even the work that's thankless, but the work that's necessary, and that they may give that sense of freedom to their children, all after the example of the Good Shepherd. of our Lord Jesus Christ. A blessed Father's Day to you all.